Yo, it's your boy, Toso, or you can call me Sonny. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about rap. My question for you is, what is hip hop? Or maybe better yet, how does hip hop interact with our culture today? There's a lot of conversation surrounding the violence and the commercialization and the appropriation. So me and my boy Jay Clark wanted to break down some of the topics surrounding this super interesting subject of hip hop and culture. This is going to be a three-part conversation. This is naturally part one. Today, we're going to talk mostly about the impact of rap music in society, some conversations around appropriation versus appreciation, and finally, we're going to delve a little bit into the commercialization of rap. If you enjoyed this conversation or would like to hear more, please feel free to hit me up. Email is pretty good, timegrow@proton.me. That's timegrow@proton.me. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Feel free to leave a like, follow along, and give us some feedback if you think that there's something that we missed. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Untitled Podcast. And today, we're going to talk about hip hop. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation. Or should I say, relax and take notes. Let's get into it.
We got live. What's up, my brother?
We are live. What's going on, Jay Clark?
Welcome, welcome. I am the host today. Thankful for the opportunity. We're gonna tackle a relevant topic today to everyone, which is music, and we're gonna get into a rap culture series. And we're not gonna do it like the bow. We're just gonna toss up some topics, chop it up about them, pick each other's brain on it, and on to the next type of deal. So the first thing we really gonna tackle, unless you want to add anything, Sonny, would you want to hop right into it?
No, that's good with me, bro. Let's hop into it.
Let's get it. This should be interesting though. Not just today, but the whole genre.
I'm excited for the. I just said I don't have anything to add, and look at me. I'm excited for this because essentially, what I feel like hip hop, rap, music, and then how it comes together with culture. That's. I think it was like Chance, one of his songs, maybe Kanye might have been both of them. They said music is all we got, and I think that there's a really powerful thing that if we actually can figure out what's going on here, we could flip the script, so to speak, in terms of using hip hop to empower communities instead of destroy them. So I'm glad. I'm excited for this talk. I'm seeing to see where this goes in the next couple episodes.
Works to that. That's a good segue too. We're gonna open up with the impact of rap in society as far as our day-to-day lives. And the question is, does the violence promote negative stereotypes within our culture? Or does it provide a voice for marginalized communities? So is it more so promoting the violence, or is it promoting the free speech side of things?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with what the goal of the music is. Because there's different types of hip hop. Like you have like party music, you have conscious music, you have like there's different facets of it. So if the goal of the music is just to turn up, then maybe it is promoting some things that are a little bit less savory for your average cultural partaker. But if you're talking about things that are more thoughtful and some of the more quote unquote conscious rap, even if it does have elements of violence in it, I feel like those are the types of that's what art is. You're reflecting what is around you. And so to me, there's a little bit of both in there. Like you have people who take advantage of the art form and use it for their own selfish ends. And we can maybe get into that too in terms of the commercialization of hip hop. But then you can also get into the side of using it as a tool to wake folks up, to open people's eyes, to expand perspectives. Hip hop is a powerful tool for that. Not just in it started as a black art form in New York, and then it expanded towards a global phenomenon. You got kids, practicing political activism in the Philippines using hip hop. Like that's the type of time that we're on today. So I think that it's like with anything, there's some good and there's some bad.
That's very true. I think hip hop is a representation of revolt in a way, and it is an art form Like it
Ooh.
is, you know, you got to twist words together, make them sound good musically. That takes a certain level of skill, but because it's art, you know, this it can go any direction, and it depends
Mm.
on the artist. It depends on what the listener, you know, is seeking. Like I'm more so conscious rap personally, but of course I have my stage when I was listening to like very violent music. You know, like when
Yeah.
I played football, I wasn't listening to J. Cole like right before the game. Like that, it was just a different type of music I was
Yeah,
listening to.
yeah,
Like,
Future bumping in the headphones, right? There you
yeah,
go, or whatever it is. I hear
and
you,
depend on the
bro.
mood too. Like when you're
Yeah,
angry, you know, you listen to sometimes worse music than you would have when you're sober minded. I would say so, and that's
yeah.
to say that's not, you know, it's not good, but it's just
No, but
reality.
it
You
is
know,
what it is. I think you said what is it? It's a revolution or it's a revolt or some sort of revolt type
yeah,
music.
hip hop rap is it's an expression of revolt, like in
I
my
like
opinion,
that
yeah,
because
like
it really
rebellion
is fight
almost.
music. Yeah, it's fight music. Its origins are in protest. It's essentially a form of you're not going to give us anything, but we're going to make something out of it anyway. Watch. Not only did we make music, we made a whole entire culture out of it, from
Yeah,
b-boys to spray paint to clothes to food to the way that we interact with each other on it's a whole thing. And to me, it really does come down to how we want to use this thing. Because if we want to use it for something that, and as you said, like there's different things, different stages, different strokes for different folks. I think it was Ye also who said something about like in a lot of music, the 808s actually have like and it's, you want to hesitate from getting too spiritual or too like, metaphysical, but there is an element of the music that we're listening to, the frequencies that we allow in, that can actually raise or lower our overall perception, awareness. And he was giving an example of how 808s essentially, some 808s essentially keep you down in like this lower chakra, which is why you see people who are listening to drill music, trap music. You're in a certain headspace. You're not elevating. You're not thinking higher thoughts. You are very, very, let's go and
yeah.
do this thing. Let's go run this, let's go slide on this, whatever it is. And there's a certain way that the music actually panders to that. So if we want it to be for something that's greater than just violence, then we need to start putting, it's like the inputs determine the outputs. My mom used to always tell me garbage in, garbage out. And so I used to always think, okay,
Right.
if we put in garbage into the culture, how are we going to expect the music that comes from the culture then to be completely clean? There's going to be an element of whatever is in that initial batch, initial mix that's going to come out at the end of it. So instead of demonizing the art form that comes out, maybe we should use that as a sort of a signal or wow, this thing could be used to help us identify what the actual issues are. Instead of saying this is the bad thing, when we see Italian gangster mob movies, we celebrate them. When we see, it's you see violence in every aspect of American culture. It's not just rap music, but when we see it in rap music, for some reason, that now becomes the one that we want to identify as the
I think
all-encompassing
it's the
evil.
type too though. It's the type too though, because like if someone was only watching horror films, that's all they watch. Like they didn't consume anything but horror films, they would be a little thrown off. You know, what I mean, let's just be realistic. So in the same breath, I don't have an issue with hip hop. I grew up on hip hop. I grew up on rap, but there was a certain point in my life where I realized if I'm only listening to rap,
Yeah,
it's not going to look good. You know what I'm saying? To my exterior. Like I can't only listen to rap, especially only listen to a certain type of rap, like drill rap. That would be borderline dangerous if that's your only perspective of art. Because if you're only listening to drill app, I'm gonna guess. There's no facts. I'm gonna guess you're not going to art galleries. You're not going to museums. If
probably
you
not.
only listening to drill rap, that's my guess. You know what I'm saying? On the spectrum.
And
Like,
the important word you say too is only, because I do think that we need to balance ourselves in the way we approach all art, but especially music. Like I think that we have, as a culture, been inundated with this idea that, oh, this is, you listen to that type of music, oh, you weird, or oh, you revoke your black card. Like You know, I grew up listening to like I have friends that listen to like country music, and I thought it was a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, but like, hey, do what you got to do. I listen to classical music. I got in the background. I usually got classic FM playing. Like it just keeps me in a space where I'm feeling, you know, Renaissance like. Who knows?
Yeah,
but it's
I love piano. I love piano music, jazz.
It's good, especially background stuff. It always hits. And there's actually research out that says when there's words in music, it actually distracts you. So I usually have it as when I'm doing something, typing something, writing something, working on something. I'll just put on some instrumentals. And it's easier to have instrumentals that don't have like a crazy beat to them because I'm not, you know, getting caught up in it. But I think that can lead into the next point of this conversation, which I want to talk about in terms of the appropriation versus the appreciation. We see this dichotomy a lot. So first, you know, it's good to talk about essentially, all right, what is this impact on the culture? But then we got to also think about whose culture is this and how are we going to dole out what it means to take part in it? Mm-hmm. You know, we see all over social media where folks say, hey, this person is now invited to the cookout. Or you see folks saying like, oh, like, this person, like we're very, very generous with our culture, I feel like. And there needs to be an element of, you know, there needs to be an element of gatekeeping. What are we keeping? What are we preserving? What is sacred? What is just for lay use? Because there are things that we need to hold as sacred. And if we don't, then you're going to see what we see today with whether it's mumble rap, whether it's kids done out on codeine and drugs that is pretending that they're famous now because it's like a couple of numbers on Instagram say so. Like you have all of this that comes from what we thought was hip hop culture because it became what I think is commercialized. But what are your thoughts on how we can appreciate the art form versus how in some ways it might be appropriated for other means other than what it's intended for?
We gonna get into culture vultures? We're gonna get into vultures?
Ooh, you want to get into the Island Boys?
Ooh.
Let's leave them off for now.
Coming up. I do take slight offense. I take slight offense when you see like the hip hop jingles and like, because it's literally stripping from the culture. You're trying to sell something that's not the culture. It's not benefiting the culture. The execs aren't from the culture. The owners aren't from the culture. But yeah, you're using our jingle and our rhythm to try to sell what's not us. I don't like that. But there is a silver lining to it when, I take slight offense, but the majority of me is like, that's pretty cool. You know, they want to be like us. That is our culture. No one can deny that.
It's true. What do you think about Eminem?
Eminem? Ooh,
yeah.
I like Eminem. You know, I used to listen to him more when I was younger and more impressionable than I do now today. Yeah. For being 100, but
for him, that's what I see him as an appreciation versus appropriation. Some people don't like it because he's white, and people put him on the top 5 list. He grew up in it too. He grew up in it. That's one thing, but he has a respect for it. You can tell that he respects the art form of rap. He respects, like, he doesn't necessarily respect his adversaries or opponents in the way that he, you know, decides to use words to eviscerate them, but he respects in terms of being a technician, in terms of actually trying to string words together that has some deeper meaning. He respects that. And so I feel like for
it's
him,
an
it's
Eminem
like
in every hood. It's an Eminem in every hood at every school. They may not be a rapper, but it's an Eminem in every hood at every school.
But that's what I mean by appreciation versus appropriation, because you have somebody who is clearly from this and wants to extend what it means to be this. Like he wants real MCing to come back into the fray, because then you have people who are speaking truth to power. As we said, it's a revolt music. It's fight music. It came from protest. So essentially what you're supposed to be using it for is to speak truth to power. But when it becomes commodified by that same power and is then used to get people to buy burgers from McDonald's, then it has a different effect. So it's like,
did you see, speaking of M, did you see his cipher that he did against Trump? He did like a whole little monologue, like BET
I feel like I seen
style.
this. I feel like I saw this. This was at the time when he first got elected, right?
Yeah, and that was an interesting moment because I feel like overall Black culture didn't really accept that. They kind of clowned him for that.
They did, didn't they?
they clown him for that. So it's like
it's weird. I feel like he was trying to divorce himself from that whole world because people would immediately put that like 2 and 2 together, like they would make that a thing. I think people love to hate him, and so if he didn't come out clearly and say that he was anti-Trump, it would have been a whole thing where, oh, look at this, racist white man doing the racist white thing, but he's using hip hop. Yeah, that would have been the narrative, and he already saw it coming. He already saw it coming, so he had to, even if he was a little bit for Trump because he liked what he's doing for his pockets, he had to come out full blast and say F that dude, because it was like, I can't risk being collateral in this culture war that's happening right now. Like, I still need to preserve my voice for something that I believe in, and if it's not, I'm not putting all my eggs in any politician's basket. That's not very intelligent. So I feel like that's the move he had to make. But yeah, you're right. We don't really accept it all the time, and that might lead me into how we think about appreciation versus appropriation. Because some people, it's the same. Like, some people don't see a difference. If you have somebody who is paying homage versus somebody who is literally stealing, it's tough for us to make that divide because we don't know. Maybe we don't know if it's actual genuine in terms of paying homage, or if they're just trying to, like, if like you see a white girl wearing box braids on Instagram or something like that. Yeah. And that was happening a lot with all these new, like, what B-Had Baby and all them folks. I don't know, like the white girls that talk and act black.
I know you.
There's a trend, and I'm trying to think: is that appreciation or is that appropriation? Because it's still the culture. We're not talking about the music purely, but it's still a part of the culture of hip hop.
I think it's complete vulture. Complete vulture. It's complete. I can do this temporarily, but I don't have to live by it. See, that's where I can't speak for everybody, but that's where I find offense when it's like a phase. You know what I mean? You doing it to be cool. You doing it to get views. You doing it to make a couple dollars. Like, we can't choose when we turn on and off our blackness.
Right.
And appropriation could go back to us too, because like I don't code switch. For better or for worse, I don't code switch. I speak the same way on here as I do to my mother, as I do to now. I don't use the same words all the time, but like,
but I'm not putting on my other voice when I'm going to talk to somebody same.
I left corporate because of that, and I left any type of environment that caused me to do that. Like, I'm not stupid. I know when to put on face and when not to, and I can play the game as well when I absolutely need to. When I get pulled over on 57 South between Champaign and Kankakee, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you know what I'm saying? I might lighten up a little bit, but there's levels to it. I'm not doing it to appease anyone. I may do it to preserve my life.
Self-preservation, yeah, no, that's facts. That's facts. Well, I think that's maybe we can end that part of the conversation, because I do think there's a lot more we could probably pull out of it, but it's so much that goes into what it means to be in a culture vulture. And the thing about,
we gotta write that book, man.
Yeah, no, for real. Maybe this will be the beginning of a book, because there's so much that goes into it. Like, honestly, I feel like if we really took hold of what hip hop was as not just as a music form, not even just as a culture, but as a conduit, as a catalyst, it changes the way people see the world. And if we can actually, I think it was, I'm trying to remember who said this, but somebody was getting mad at Drake, saying, Drake, if you just made one song about, drinking water, every single female on the planet would already be like, they would be super healthy. All you gotta do is make one conscious song, but you keep making stupid stuff about blah, blah, blah. And he was kind of joking, like half tongue in cheek, but it's true. If you just put these messages out there, people aren't going to listen to a lecture. They're not going to listen to, they're not going to do an online course, most likely. They're not going to go through the research that it takes to understand some of these historical fallacies and lies that we've been ingesting as a culture. But if you put it in the music, then it becomes a thing where even if they're not consciously ingesting it, it's still happening on another level. And that's why we can get into this next part, which is the commercialization of rap. I don't know if you wanted to tee this one off and ask a few questions about it, but this is definitely an interesting part of what it means. We've already kind of touched on it.
Perfect segue. I think it's important to ask the question and meditate. Hip hop is like on how young hip hop is, going back to what you just said. So hip hop as a conduit, as an art form, as an industry is no more than 50 years old. It's like late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. So now think about how long art has existed, how long speech has existed. Like these things are a lot older and more mature than hip hop. So that in itself shows you how much hip hop has to grow, but also how much of an impact it's made in such little time. It's been 40, 50 years, and you got every kid in America at some point has had aspirations of being a rapper. Like every kid in America, and every kid in America is influenced at some point by hip hop culture, by rap culture. Brands are influenced by hip hop culture, by rap culture to the utmost level though. Like what other I almost said denomination of music, but what other sector of music gets brand deals like as soon as you start developing some form of popularity? Like you're gonna hit the Breakfast Club, you're gonna hit your MTVs, whatever they do these days. But you succeed in hip hop from a mainstream perspective, you are a star. Like you're a star at that point.
And I think it's it gets to the side of what exactly are we at and where are we trying to get to? Because the commercial side of it it's a beautiful thing if you're thinking about maybe if you're talking group economics or if you're talking how we're gonna elevate ourselves collectively. But if we're talking about being exploited by the 1% so that we could sell poison to our own communities, then the commercialization actually looks a lot more like some weird version of capitalism where we are continually on the outside looking in. But we maybe look cool, flashy for a little bit. Even the artists who are signing these deals don't know what's in them. They get used, they get abused. If they don't get a bullet put in them by the end of it, then they'll get, quote unquote, fall off. And then they'll have the, no rights to any of their stuff anyway.
Most artists don't care. I've talked to artists. There's the rare artist that actually puts his own soul and his own thoughts into the music. Most artists just want to get put on. If they've accepted that identity as being an artist, most of the time they'll do whatever they need to do to get on. So even within that, there's a huge spectrum. It's like, okay, I'll do whatever means one thing to one person. And, hey, look, there was A-Rap and Soulja Boy. I'll put it like that. There was A-Rap and Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy went on. A-Rap said, nah. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you got to make a decision.
Yeah, it's those inflection points, right? It was that dude comes and knocks on your door talking about, I can make your life crazy. That's when you gotta get on your knees and say, Lord, hey, devil gonna come knocking, life. Bro. This the thing, right? Satan was in charge of the music in heaven, y'all. Lucifer was in charge of the music in heaven, y'all. I'm gonna say it one time. Lucifer was in charge of the music in heaven, y'all. So when he got sent down to earth, when he got denounced and taken out of heaven, what do you think is the tool that he would most use to get to the kids' ears? What do you think is the tool he would use to get to the kids' brains? He's going to use the thing that he's the most deft at. And I think we don't take it seriously enough because there is good and bad in it. And we usually just kind of take the middle ground and say, it is what it is. We have to realize that, like, the potential for this to transform our thought processes in a positive direction is just as potent as its potential for it to devolve us and make us this just hedonistic, always reactive and not really thinking deeply about anything, but continually in the space of just immediate pleasure and violence and everything that goes along with that. It can keep us in that space or it can expand us. And I think that if we take it seriously and take gatekeeping and take DJing and we talk about hip hop being young, but its roots are in antiquity. Like its roots are in the griot movement and the ancient historians that were in West Africa. It comes from the islands and the drumming beats that they were cultivating in some of these places that they were being like, whether it's the, you know, the African talking drum or the djembe drums or the ones that were, you'll find all over the Caribbean islands. Like, these things kind of morphed and iterated into what we now call hip hop. But it wasn't like there was nothing and then there was hip hop. It was like there was all of these things, pain, and like, I think I like when Kendrick Lamar says in DNA, he's like, I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. It's like this idea that we got all this thousands and thousands of years of history, pain, poison, joy, strength, weakness, and you just condensed into this thing. And then around 1970, it exploded into this art form called hip hop, and the world was never the same. And so you had, you know, people who were genuine practitioners who wanted to see this thing elevate consciousness. Like, you have people who like Wu-Tang Clan, and you have people like KRS-One, like people who are real practitioners of this thing from another dimension. But then you also have the people who are completely sold out to the commercial aspect. And I think in a weird way you need both, because you almost want to see what the end game of both sides are. So you need your KRS-One, but you also need your Jay-Z, who's going to be in the boardrooms as the only black man in there trying to figure out what these people are talking about. And I think is when you figure out where is the reality and the truth, and the best practice is probably somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't agree with a lot of Jay-Z's business practices, like selling liquor and doing things that maybe are on the questionable side of ethics. But that's, at the end of the day, that's what we learned from the people who are in charge of these industries. It wouldn't be like he didn't doing it just because. It's because that's the way you get paid. And so we have to think about, what are the incentives? How are we setting them up? Are we trying to just get paid, or are we trying to deliver something that's going to free the youth and make us actually think about something deeper? So it's a lot that goes into that side for sure, but it's definitely interesting.
Hip hop, man. Change the world. Man. Change the world.
Sure.
I like how you were clear. Change the world forever. Like, literally.
Real.
Hip hop changed music, changed stardom, pop culture, the whole movement.
It even changed the way we do activism, bro. Like, I kind of mentioned it with the kids in Asian countries using it, or you have folks with understanding the way that it can, like having like rallying cries, or like different. I think it was in Brazil that there was like, it was actually a movement for like women's rights or something like that. Like, there was a lot of women that were being mishandled, and they had created this movement where they were using the like some rap song, and they were continually singing, and there was a female rap artist, and they were just using the hook from that song, and it became like this rallying cry for this movement. And that's the power that it can have. It can get everyone on the same page in terms of moving in a direction and saying, look, this is the agenda that we want to push, and this is how we're going to do it. But it could also, again, it could be an element of confusion and keeping us down if we don't own the means of production, right? It's like any economy. You don't own the means of production, then you're going to be, you're going to be a slave to the person who does. And so it's just about taking those back at the end of the day. But that was part one. We're closing in on 27 minutes. I don't know if you wanted to gun into that fourth topic, or you want to hold that for the next time.
You kind of segued it, but we should save it for next time. We kind of pitched it out. You know what I'm saying?
I did. I put it out a little bit.
We'll lead out next time with that.
All right, brilliant. Well, I'm gonna let you close off, and then we'll go ahead and I'll put this out for the people, and we'll go ahead and talk about this again next week. But this is a really important topic. I feel like it's a beautiful time. And maybe we'll see some movement in the future. But I appreciate you having me today, bro.
For sure, bro. I want to leave this message specifically for artists, especially vocal artists. I want people to make music from the heart, bro. Don't stop trying to align to the culture, align to what's hot. By the time you figure out how to do what somebody's been doing for 5 years, it's going to be some new shit out anyway. Like, let's just be very, very clear. By the time you catch on to what's hot, something else is going to be hot. So the only way you're going to break through that seam of popularity, relevancy, even within your own city, is by being yourself and putting out authentic music, simply put. But we're going to pick up next week on a political tip, see how hip-hop has an impact on the culture in that way.
Absolutely. Y'all share, like, comment. Go ahead and put this out into the internet webs so that people can see it. Once again, you can find me online. I'm building the blog at timegrow.org. You can also find me on Twitter at Tasso Philosophy. You can find Justin at jclarkreal, and across all those social media platforms. Go ahead and interact with us as we continue to develop this podcast and see where it goes. But anyway, much love to you, my brother.
Been real, bro. Good week, team.
All right.